Another great way to work with AI is to assign roles. You could do this in two ways. One, you actually combine the two ideally, right? One is you make it clear to the AI what your role is in this situation. For example, that you are applying for a job, so you are working on your resume or a cover letter, right? The other one is to assign a role to the AI, right? So let's say that you are working on some history project and you say, okay, you are a professor of history. I am a student. I would like to help, for you to help me understand these concepts, right? So by assigning these roles, it's part of giving context, right? It's part of making the AI understand what it is you're trying to do and what role you would like it to play in that task, right? Next one, AI is actually surprisingly creative, right? Before we had these tools, we sort of expected that, okay, when we get AI tools, they're going to be very good at numbers, but they can't possibly be creative, right? It turns out it was mostly the opposite, right? They're actually not that good with numbers. They need to use external tools to get numbers right, but they are fantastically creative, which is why I often find it very useful, instead of starting an AI task by me narrowing down, say like, here's the thing I want you to work with me on, I'd like to start in the opposite and expand, right? And say like, what are all the different best ideas for this concept, right? What are things I should consider before I start this thing, right? So expanding before you narrow, right? So give me a list of 50 really good ideas about this. And then like, oh, this is great. I like number 3, 7, and 15. Let's continue with those. Right? Another way of looking at this is I often say that you should ask before you task, right? So before I task an AI to do something for me, I will ask, what is the best way to do this? What are best practices for this? What should I remember before? What should I make sure to avoid as in doing this, right? What order does it make the most sense to do this task in? Once I've done that, and the AI has given me answers to these questions, now, with this extra information in the context, that is when I'll say like, great, let's do number 3 out of those things and make sure we follow the best practices that we discussed. And you'll find that you get higher quality outputs than if you just went straight to the task. Right? A very important thing to do is using examples. And you can do that in 2 ways. Obviously, if you know kind of what you're looking for, it's much easier for you to show that than just try to explain it, right? So if I want to convert, for example, the transcripts from a lecture into some sort of a summary, I might give it the summaries from 2 or 3 other lectures and say like, this is how I like my summaries to be. Please now take this transcript and create a new summary following this template. Right? So giving examples of what you want to do, like I want you to do this, and here's an example of what the output would look like if this was the input. Great, now that we've agreed on this, here's a whole bunch of data and I'd like for you to keep doing this. Right? So using examples by giving them is the one part of it, but the other part is asking for examples. So if I'm in the middle of doing sort of a long discussion with an AI about something and I feel like we're moving towards where we're going, I would try to remember to always ask for an example. I said, okay, based on what we've discussed so far, give me an example of what this would look like, right? And the AI will then output an example, and one of 2 things will be true, right? So either I'll be like, yes, this is just what I'm talking about, keep going, or I say, oh wait, no, that's actually not what I'm looking for, so let's make some changes before we move on, right? Finally, and this is important, and it's a problem for those of you who mostly use free AI tools. The best way to get the highest quality work out of an AI is to do whatever you're doing 1 step at a time, right? Which will use more messages, right, than if you just dump this very long prompt in that says, look at all these things, then give me this, and a list of that, right? Now you might be used to that because you are used to knowing like, oh, I only have so and so many messages before I have to wait 3 hours, right? But the quality of the work of the AI is inferior compared to if you think of it more as a dialogue where you first set the context and have some back and forth about how you want to do this, and then step by step work your way through whatever problem is you're trying to solve. So ideally you want to try to be able to do that, and typically that means using an AI that you are actually paying for.